When I was in rabbinical school, when I was finishing rabbinical school, we had a battery of tests known as bikiyut. You had to show your expertise in a variety of different areas. So there were bikiyut exams on lots of different things, like how to tie tefillin knots, how to tie tzitzis knots. You had to know all the different nuschaot. You had to learn all the different trups. The nuschaot were the melodies for worship. The trup was the melodies, or is the melodies for reading Torah and the Megillot. And you had to do all those things. And then there was bikiyut in a lot of other areas. There was bikiyut in codes. That is the codes of Jewish law, like the Shulchan Aruch, and the subsequent codes of law. There was bikiyut in Talmud, in the Gemara, and there was bikiyut in Bible, in Torah. Did you have those exams? No. Because they've done away with them now also. Is that because you're younger than me, or is that just... You didn't have bikiyut exams? Did you have bikiyut exams to get into rabbinical school? Right, so we didn't have bikiyut exams to get into rabbinical. It used to be in my father's day, and then subsequent years, Rabbi Berman's years, you had to show an expertise of a certain level to get in, right? In my year, they just let anybody in. So, but they wanted to ensure that when you left, that you had a certain expertise in things. And there was a bikiyut exam in Bible, in Torah, in Tanakh, in which you had to identify a number of different people. There was a list of 10 people that you had to identify, and if you could identify them, then you passed, and whatever the percentage was, obviously. And on my exam was a woman named Timna. Do you know who Timna was? It's a cave. Timna's a person, okay? It's okay, because I answered a cave, right? Timna was on my exam. What?
Wife of Esau?
Wife of Esau's son, Eliphaz. I wish Phil was sitting next to me, because I certainly would have cheated off of him, right?
I got the answer wrong. You would
But whatever, you were way closer than I was, I can tell you that much. In any case, I walked away from the exam. Obviously, I'd gotten that one wrong. Thankfully, I passed the exam. But I was so bothered by the question, right? And the reason why I was bothered by the question was because who cares, right? What an obscure person, and what impact could she possibly have had on the future of the Jewish people? In fact, she wasn't the wife of Eliphaz. She was Eliphaz's concubine. So she wasn't even a wife, right? She wanted to be his wife, but wasn't chosen, and became later a concubine. Now you might ask yourself, why am I obsessing over this, right? And the reason I'm obsessing over it is because of what happens in this morning's parsha. So let me jump right into it. In this morning's parsha, we have the following statement. Ki lo davar reik hu mikem, כי הוא חייכם ודבר הזה תאריכו ימים על האדמה אשר אתם עוברים על הירדן שם על יבשתה. For this is not a trifling thing for you, it is your very life. Through it you shall long endure on the land, and you shall possess it upon crossing the Jordan. Clearly, it is referring to two things. Clearly, it's referring to Torah in general, right? The specifics of the fact that Torah is not empty. Reik is the key word, right? There used to be a line in Aleinu, right? It used to say, Shehem mishtachavim lehevel vilarik umipalalim el lo yoshia, right? That they bow down to absolute nothingness. But we, va'anachnu korim umishtachavim umodim lifnei melech malchei amlachim. But we bow down to the true God. Right, that line, Shehem Nishtachavim Leheva Vilarik Umipalim El Yoshia, we've taken out of our Sidurim because, truthfully, it's offensive, right, to other people. And so we've taken it out, but it still exists in some Sidurim, and in some communities it's still recited. The word Rik means absolute nothingness. So the Torah here is saying in its final pages, this Torah is not an empty thing. There is great value here. And it goes on to suggest you'll possess it when you cross into the land of Israel. So it's possible the text is referring to the land of Israel, that Israel is not something that is empty of meaning. There is value in the land itself. Or you could read it as there's value in the Torah, and there's nothing in it that is worthless, which is what gives birth to a whole series of thought about the nature of Torah. And we see it first and foremost in Rashi's first explanation of what this means. He says, Ki lo davar reik hu mikem, lo lechinam atem yagitem yigi'em ba ki harbe schar talui ba. Right? That this Torah is not worthless. It may be hard to acquire, but the reward is extraordinary from acquiring it. Right? So he reads this as it's not an empty thing. It may appear to be, but don't think that there's value in it. Right? So that's the first thought, and that is everything in the Torah is of value. And if it's hard to understand, that doesn't mean it's meaningless. It just means it's hard to understand, and you have to work a little harder. Then his second explanation, Ein lo, right? Ein lecha davar reikam b'Torah. There's nothing meaningless in the Torah, which gives birth to the idea that every word, every vowel, every dot means something. And I say every dot because, we see spots in the Torah where there are dots over words, right? So he says that every single thing that's in the Torah has meaning, has purpose, has value. And therefore you can't just dismiss parts of the Torah. Right? And you can't dismiss words in the Torah. It's a great explanation. But then it's the third explanation that I love the most. Here it is. And I think I may be taking some license in my reading of it. Teda lecha, shekein amru chachamim. No, this is what the rabbis or the wise people taught, the sages taught. Vachot Lotan Timna. The sister of Lotan was Timna. The Timna haita Pilegesh, right? And Timna was the concubine of, as I explained already, Eliphaz, who was Esau's son. Right? The Timna, lefi she'amra eni k'dai liyot lo isha halavai ve'yeh pilagsho. Right? And the rabbis imagine, this is what Timna said. She said, halavai that I could be his wife. Wouldn't it be great if I could have been Eliphaz's wife? But in fact, I'm not. I'm his concubine. At least I'm his concubine. Right? But what she's really saying is at least I'm a footnote in the text of the Torah. How many people never get to be even in the Torah? Right? Which I think I'm going to stretch a little bit to suggest that she herself, who seems to be an irrelevant character in the story, understands her own value. Or better, understands at least that she has value. To which I say, your life isn't a trivial thing. Whether you ever publish anything or your name is written anywhere or you're a footnote in anything, doesn't matter. Your life, says Timna, is valuable and has a contribution to make and shouldn't be forgotten. My father did a lot of editing of people's works. The most famous of people's works he edited was the work of Joseph Telushkin. And in many second editions of Telushkin's books, he has thank yous to my father. If you look in Gunther Plaut's edition of the Torah, which is the edition that the Reform movement uses, you'll see that Gunther Plaut has a whole paragraph, thank you to my father for the corrections that he made in the subsequent volumes. My father loved this. Loved this. Anytime we would go to a shul where they were using Gunther Plaut's edition of the Torah, he would turn to that page and show it to me. And guess what? I do that now with my kids. Anytime I'm in a shul that's using it with my kids, I open it, I say, look, Zaydi's name right here. Right? It's a thrill. I mean, it's an absolute thrill. But guess what? How many of us are never going to get into a book? How many of us are never going to be a footnote in a book even? That doesn't mean your life isn't valuable. It doesn't mean your life is trivial. This example here of Timnah, who we think is a completely trivial, unnecessary character in the Torah, says Rashi, no, it's not true. Every person has value. Every person has something to give, has a reason for being, a purpose for being. Just last night, I had a chance to sit with someone whose friend's kid was in a terrible accident, and she had not heard. It was a year later, she had not heard of this accident, and she felt terrible. She felt terrible that she hadn't reached out, she hadn't offered any assistance, to which I said, there's probably a reason why you hadn't found out, because a year after the accident, people start to disappear. There are people who rush to assist in that first few moments of the trauma. But as the year unfolds, people disappear. To which I say, you're probably put here now at this reason. You found out now because it's time for you to appear. It's time for you to make your appearance. It's time for you to show up. That's what I say to all of you all the time. And obviously, whatever I preach to you, I preach to myself also. Right? And that is, there are moments for us to show up, and that means our life has meaning, and our life has purpose. Our life isn't trivial. Shabbat shalom.